but I always equate it to a country song played backwards. You know, your dog runs back home, you get your girlfriend back, you heal your metabolic diseases, you lose weight, and your mama gets out of jail. It's pretty good stuff.
How did you find the carnivore diet?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked. It's kind of a long journey. Let me go over kind of my first video on my YouTube channel. I used to do phone reviews, and I switched over to the carnivore because the community is so great, and we can talk about that later. But I've been on a yo-yo diet journey, really, that started back when I was overweight. I was doing radio in Tucson, Arizona, had a news talk show, and we got a sponsor for a medical weight loss deal. And of course, it was the starvation diet. So 850 calories a day for 3 months. And I did lose weight, but started cheating towards the end of that. I probably lost about 40 pounds. So it was great, but it's not the best way to go. Trust me. From that, I went to boot camp, which was HIIT training. I did that 3 times a week, but I was still eating carby stuff. You know, I would have a shake and a protein shake and rice and salmon with some picante sauce, a big salad. So I was eating what I thought was healthy, and it wasn't bad. And I lost another 13 pounds. The owner of that place suggested keto. I'd never heard of keto. This was, I don't know, 7 years ago or something. And he wanted me to do keto, but then carbo load on the weekends and lift weights and see if I could get buff. That was his plan. But I researched keto and I thought I'd give it a try. So I tried keto and tracked my macros meticulously and did well at first, but I was having trouble sleeping. So I saw a video about, you know, maybe adding some magnesium. Well, it was either the wrong kind or too much or something. I was miserable for a week. I was in the bathroom a lot for a week, and I got really discouraged, and I ended up buying a pizza and getting a blizzard. And over the course of the next few months, putting all the weight back on. Then I tried keto again, had some success. And then eventually, this is where it really was good. 4 years ago, 4 years ago, I did one meal a day and basically was eating a steak at lunch. And I lost 40, 50 pounds. I didn't have a scale, but had great success. Still had the sleep problem a little bit, but I loved it. It was great. And then life happened. My mom was deathly ill, and I moved back to Texas and got to escort her home, which was a real blessing. And the pandemic hit right when she died. And it was, my life was a mess and things were not going well. And I ended up slipping again, as you could imagine, and gained the weight back again. So this time, I know what to do. I know how to do it. I found a wonderful community here online, the carnivore community. I've been back on it now for, I think, 36 days, down 11 and a half pounds, feeling really good. The mental clarity's back. Lots of other, well, not lots, I have a boring story compared to most, but I'm just really encouraged, and, I'm just happy to be talking with you, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
Only 36 days and you've already lost 11 and a half pounds.
Yeah.
What else has happened in that time? Like, you noticed anything with sleep, mood, things like that?
Yeah, mood is a big one. With the mental clarity comes the carnivore calm, as I like to call it, because alliteration is good. The carnivore calm is real, and that's just amazing. I love that. You just stay even, all day mentally. And so that's great. I will get tired after a big meal because I transitioned to OMAD pretty quickly, probably 2 weeks or so eating when I was hungry, that whole thing. And I've transitioned to mostly OMAD. Now I'll do 2MAD once in a while if I'm hungry, but and I think the OMAD has helped me to now accelerate the weight loss. Sleep is fine. I don't need as much of it. Probably the biggest change I've noticed was my tinnitus was getting pretty loud, and it's gone for the most part. I still hear it once in a while if I try really hard and it's very quiet, but the tinnitus or tinnitus, however you want to say it, has gotten so much better. And then another one, someone else mentioned floaters, and I never even thought about it. My floaters they used to be a big distraction, and they're faintly there, but I have to strain to see them. So floaters are a lot better. And then I loved your video on dental health. I feel exactly the same way. There's no plaque buildup. Bad breath is gone. At least I hope, like you said. Um, and I have a pretty big cavity between a couple teeth here that the dentists have really not wanted to do anything about because it isn't critical yet. But I don't think it's getting any bigger. I've only been on 36 days, so I don't know if I can attribute that to carnivore, but I'm more confident about my dental health on this diet too. So those are all benefits.
Nice. On the dental health, like, do you feel day to day you're not feeling like, oh, I need to brush my teeth? Like I brush my teeth in the evening, but prior to carnivore, when I'd wake up in the morning, I'd be like, oh, I need to brush my teeth. It feels horrible. And
Right.
I just don't have that
Right.
feeling anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. That whole morning breath and the plaque buildup. Yeah, you're right. It's
Mm.
gone. I don't even think about that. So,
Mm.
I will brush my teeth, usually when I shower, which is often in the morning.
Mm.
But yeah, otherwise I don't really worry about it. And it's not really a concern. And my mouth is not nagging me to take care of it. So it's great.
The biggest change for me was definitely the gums, though. Like,
Yeah.
going into a hotel, like I'd always go into that hotel bathroom and I'd see the toothbrush, and it's almost like the psycho music was playing at the back of my mind because I know what's going to
Yeah.
happen if I use it, you know. You're doing basically one meal a day.
Yeah.
And are you living with anyone? Are you kind of trying to balance meal preparation with anyone?
No, I mean, it makes it a lot easier when you're a single old guy, I just have to worry about me. And the people here in Iowa were so generous. I just had a neighbor bring me a whole bunch of meat. It was great. Another neighbor brought me a bunch of pork. That's one thing about Iowa. There's a lot of pork here, and I don't prefer pork, but when they bring it over, you thank them. And so, my freezer has some meat in it. And what I prefer, if I could do it, I would do a ribeye a day, but that's outside of my price range. So I'll do hamburger, as fatty as I can get it. And what's really cool is the local grocery store down the street here. Uh, I asked them, I said, do you have fat trimmings? Because I used to do that in Texas. Um, and they sold the fat trimmings to me for like 50 cents a pound or something. So if you're watching and you're not aware of that, you should check with your local even supermarket and go to the butcher's department and see if they'll sell you some fat trimmings, because that's great. But the local butcher or local meat department wouldn't do that. They take their fat trimmings and they mix it into their ground beef and they sell it as a butcher's special. And they told me it's more fat than 80/20. So I get that every chance I get, for the burger that I'm having to, help me afford this better because I can't do a ribeye a day. So that's mostly what I live on.
In this 36 days, have you encountered any kind of comments, resistance, anything like that from friends or family?
It's funny. So I recently moved to Iowa from Texas. I got it here in March, and they knew I was carnivore when I moved up here. They're so hospitable. They actually put some meat in my refrigerator and stuff when I moved in. It was already there waiting for me, which was really cool. However, when you're the new kid in town, you get invited over a lot. It's like, hey, Mike, come to dinner. We want to get to know you better. I want to take you out to lunch. So that I fell off of the wagon when I first got here because I was doing keto before I moved here from Texas. And so I did fall off when I got here because what are you going to say? It's like, well, are you having ribeye? I just wasn't going to be that guy, especially as the new guy. Right. So I was eating, Aunt Betsy's casserole and would you like some dessert? And then, of course, when you're doing that, you're craving the stuff you like. So I like peanut butter cup blizzards from Dairy Queen, and we have a Dairy Queen in town, unfortunately. So I got, ice cream, you can pack on the pounds fast with ice cream, unfortunately. So I did that. Now that I've gotten to know everyone better, and this is mostly my church family here. So, I came up doing a couple podcasts and working with the church and stuff. So this is like, they're really understanding. And there's actually one person in the church doing carnivore with me. She's heard about it. She's done it before. So we kind of are friends and compare notes. And then there's another guy who plays bass in the band. He lost a bunch of weight well before I got here doing carnivore. And there's a doctor in town that is carnivore. So if I need to see the doctor, I think that's who I'm going to see. And so now that I'm established, it's all good. And then like my good friend here, who's the pastor, he makes fun of me. He kids around with me. He calls it the carnivore cult. So it's like, but he's joking around. He's rooting me on. So yeah, here I haven't had any pushback here. I do have an ex-wife who's a nurse, and she thinks I'm going to kill my kidneys. So there is that.
But I guess she would probably assume that even if you were just doing keto, right? Because
Yeah.
that's kind of yeah. What is the goal for you, carnivore wise?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, it's weight loss. I mean, that was the reason why I got into it. And, but it's kind of changed a little bit. Doing the yo-yo diet has shown me a couple things, right? Um, I'm a person I don't deal with autoimmune stuff. I don't have any thyroid issues. I don't, have any of these other things that I just feel for people that I watch, and they just have, these conditions that they're overcoming through carnivore. It's a beautiful thing. So I don't deal with those types of things. And so and honestly, I probably could tolerate salads or vegetables, that sort of thing. Not fruit, because if I was metabolically healthy, maybe even fruit. But what I've discovered in this journey is I don't want to do that, because if I start throwing in asparagus and some of that other stuff, or potatoes, and go back to fruit, if I ever do get back into shape, we'll see. Um, am I going to lose the mental clarity? Am I going to lose the dental health, especially on fruit? If I'm putting sugar back in my mouth, then I'm going to start waking up with that morning bad breath, I would assume. And I would certainly, probably have to give a dentist some money eventually, so those so it's the other things that I'm finding out more about that, want me to, are encouraging me to stay on this for the long term. And I'm kind of old. So, assuming that I do reach my goal weight and I do get in better shape, I'm going to have a better quality of life, and I might stick around for another 20 years now that I'm 60, or 30. That would be cool.
Once you get into it, it's very hard to give it up. It's very hard to go, yeah, I want to go back to that feeling hungry all the time, and feeling
Yeah.
bloated and then feeling hungry immediately afterwards.
You're not kidding, man. And especially doing OMAD, I'm only eating once a day. And earlier you asked
Mm.
me about meal prep. My meal prep is take a frozen steak out of the freezer and put it in the air fryer, or take it out the night before and put it in the cast iron skillet, or brown up some ground beef and put in some sausage to make it more interesting. Um, so meal prep's very easy and fast. So my one meal a day lasts a whole half hour, cooking to consuming. I'm sleeping about an hour less and feeling great. So that's a little bit more extra time. Um, I mean, so OMAD is just a great time saver. And like you said, why would I go back to having the sugar crash in the afternoon and being cranky and being hangry? And why give up the carnivore calm if you don't have to? And um, I'm old enough to maybe start thinking Alzheimer's not really in my family, but that's type 3 diabetes. I definitely want to avoid that at all costs. And, kind of longevities in my family too. My grandparents lived into their 80s, and they smoked. So they'd probably still be alive. They'd probably still be 140, 150 if they hadn't. My one grandma lived to be 94. So, and my aunt lived to be 95. So it's conceivable at 60, maybe I have 30 more years in me, but you don't want to just add years to your life. You want to add life to your years. And that's what I feel like I'm getting back. And even 10 pounds down, it's a difference. It's a noticeable difference to me. And my clothes are already starting to fit better. And only a little more than a month in, I'm thinking by Thanksgiving, it's going to be really good.
That's a really good point about adding life to your years rather than years to your life, right? I feel like the the kind of the big pharma model is really adding years to your life. It's just like, okay, well, you're going to be feeling bad, but let's just extend your life as much as possible. Take all these different medicines, take this medicine to support the problems that were created with the previous medicine you were taking, and all this kind of thing. Um,
Right.
Whereas carnivore kind of really does flip it. And it's like adding life into your years because you don't need those medications, and you just feel better most of the time.
I mean, it's absolutely true. I laugh at the pharmaceutical ads because they're usually minute long ads, and then there's that 30 seconds in the middle where you've got a cute mom swinging in slow motion in a chair with the sun going down and golden hour and the wind blowing the tall grass, and they're going through all the things that this prescription could do to kill you or make you feel bad. It just cracks me up every time. It's like, suicidal thoughts or actions. If you actually take suicidal action, call your doctor immediately, and all this stuff. It's like the side effects are worse than the cure, man. And I watch so many carnivore lives and so many carnivore videos, and all these people that have been healed from all kinds of different things. I mean, how many people are in the I've lost 100 pounds club? And then other people about psoriasis clearing up, their thyroid issues getting better, and people coming off of their diabetes medicine, off of their insulin, off of their blood pressure medicine. Um, I mean, it really seems to be the answer to a lot of things. Um, yeah, and you may have seen me put this in some of your chats when you're live, but I was equate it to a country song played backwards. Your dog runs back home, you get your girlfriend back, you heal your metabolic diseases, you lose weight, and your mama gets out of jail. It's pretty good stuff.
Oh, nice. On the disclaimers thing, on in the commercials, just to touch on that for a second, I
Yeah.
I honestly feel like that's like a process of desensitization about issues. Like, because all the I'm not in the US, so we don't have medication commercials out here, but I have lived in the US, so I've seen the kind of commercials you're talking about. And
Yeah.
um it's like when they all do it, it feels like when they all do it, no one does it, right? It's like when you've got
Yeah.
when you use bold in your writing, right? So let's say you're writing an essay and you're using bold to highlight a word, right? It stands out because it's bold. But some people go overboard and every second word is bolded or every sentence is bolded or something like that. And then when everything's bold, nothing's bold.
Right.
And it's the same with the disclaimers. When there's a disclaimer in everything, there's a disclaimer in nothing. It's like I lived in California, and every building you go into in California has a disclaimer. This building might contain asbestos or something like that. This building might contain cancer inducing things or whatever. And it's like when every building has that disclaimer in it, no building's got that disclaimer in it because you're just ignoring it,
Right.
right? And so
Yeah,
it's the same with the
exactly.
medication, right? People are not listening to the disclaimers really because it's just like, well, everyone says that kind of thing. So it almost becomes like people think, well, I'm just going to take the drugs because it'll probably make me feel better. They're not thinking about all those problems that are going to happen.
Yeah, and you just tune it out. I mean, that's a
Mm,
solid point. I didn't think about it that way. Um, because, but you're right. I mean, that could be what they're doing. I just thought it was some sort of legislation they had to adhere to,
yeah.
and that could be. But I see either whether that's true, whether it's because Congress told them they had to do it or not. I can
Mm,
see your point.
mm,
And plus when your doctor's telling you, most people trust their doctor, and your doctor goes, "Hey, you need to be on this because I have to treat this symptom." But
mm,
and the doctors that are in the carnivore space, you and I aren't doctors, but the doctors that are in the carnivore space, and then people like us that are telling our individual stories, the doctors that are in our carnivore space are saying they're not treating the root most of the time. They're treating the
mm,
symptoms of the root. And the root, we're finding out, is metabolic syndrome. And that manifests itself in so many different ways that we talked about, or that I mentioned before. The thyroid, sometimes it's, skin rashes or psoriasis. The mouth thing is its own thing, and just metabolic disease causing diabetes or pre-diabetes, skin tags, all those signs. And all of those seem to improve, if not go away, once you start
mm,
eating a diet that has protein that's building blocks for your bones and your muscles, and fat, which is
mm,
fuel for your brain and the building blocks of your cells. And when you do that, the body's going to do what it does, which is heal. And that's
mm,
what we're seeing. Thousands of people are telling us those stories.
yeah. And so just to go back on something you talked about before, you said when you moved to Iowa, when you got to your new place, like people are bringing meat around to you. People are
Yeah,
gifting you all this
yes,
meat. So, um, that's kind of not my impression of what it would be like in America in the current climate. So I feel like in Western countries, in Australia as well, there seems to be a big kind of shift against meat. Um,
right.
and that would I don't know, maybe fly in the face of that shift. So like is Iowa kind of maybe a little bit different from the what the maybe the mainstream kind of situation is like?
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, Dave, I have a lot of experience in politics. Um, so, I mean, that's a political question. When you live, Iowa's a red state. Um, there's a lot of conservatives here. When you get into the rural Iowa, which is where I am, it's even redder. Um, and then again, we're talking, this is my church family. So we're talking about Christian conservatives. And that would be different than your California liberal, just, to contrast. Now, if there's California liberals that see this and they're on carnivore and they're healing, I'm cheering you on. So don't take that the wrong way. But, you know, and I'm just going to go there. Right now, there is a movement from the WEF and the UN and the WHO and others that are, saying to save the planet from climate change, we have to get rid of cows and their emissions, and we have to eliminate beef from our diet, and we have to go to vegan as the healthiest and the best for the planet. And that is a real thing. Those are the words that they use, and that is what they would like to do. Um, I would say the people that I know here in rural Iowa are not going to play that game for as long as they are not forced to. And everyone here, I mean, there's a lot of hog farmers here and corn farmers too. um, yeah, surrounded by cornfields, but I think it's mostly feed for livestock. Um, and so, yeah, the people I know, at least here in rural Iowa, are both conservative and they like their steaks. So, and they're very generous, and we help each other.
I'm not very clued up on the kind of the environmental question, right? I've got my idea of, you know, this the cows are creating all the environmental destruction kind of thing. I've got my own ideas about that, and you know, I would think that's kind of not probably not accurate. But
Right.
what I mean, it does seem to me a little bit of a stretch to think that it's cows who are just doing their natural thing, eating, sleeping, you know, and just living in a field, destroying the environment versus factories producing fake meat or producing cereals and all this kind of thing. What's your take on that?
Yeah, 100% agree with that assessment. I'm going to get the number wrong, maybe. So don't quote me on this. And someone please Google this. So don't take this as gospel. But what I had read was, back in the day in the Great Plains of North America, there were 61 million bison, 61 million bison on the plains in the 1700s, 1600s, 1500s. Um, Vastly outnumbering the number of cows in America today. Uh, Certainly, climate change wasn't a problem back then that we know of. And look at all that methane emission and cow chip bingo going on. So, to say that the number of cows that we have now in the United States or around the world is an issue causing the planet climate distress, to me, is rather laughable, to be honest. Um, and I think their motives are otherwise. I'm going to do a video on this soon, um, to and use their quotes, use their words on what they're thinking and what they're trying to do. But yeah, their theory is that methane is a much more potent greenhouse gas than CO2. Now CO2 is plant food, so CO2 is actually good for the planet, but that'll be part of my video. But so that's their contention, is the methane is the problem and the number of cows have to go down. But again, we had so many bison roaming the Great Plains. Um, it doesn't make sense, and I think they have ulterior motives in mind. But certainly we've seen meat prices go up for various reasons, and I do believe there was a gentleman, actually, Scott, Dr. Baker did a video on this, a guy in the UK who wants to tax meat to get people off of that bad behavior in order to save the planet. So that is the sentiment, and some people who would like to control what we eat. You know, I don't care what people eat. I just want the freedom to eat what I want to eat.
Yeah, I think that seems to be the sentiment that comes from most carnivores. Is like, you know,
Yeah.
you do you. You want to eat tofu and you want to eat plants and stuff. That's fine. I'm not stopping you. More meat for
Right.
me. But yeah, just
Right.
stay out of my business. Hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I have trouble enough running my own life. I'm not gonna try to run someone else's.
Yeah.
Um, and but what's cool is you have like-minded people, and this carnivore community is amazing. The way everyone
Hmm.
rallies around each other and promotes each other and encourages each other and cheers each other on and supports each other. I haven't seen anything like it. It just blows me away, and I like that vibe. It's the right thing to do and the right way to do it.
Hmm.
And through that encouragement, you're much less likely to fall off like I have in the past. And I'm determined. I'm done with the yo-yo dieting, and I found my people. So I'm going to
Hmm.
hang out with my people, and we're all going to celebrate life and add life to our years.
That 100% agree with that. Like, I don't know how, I don't know whether I would have fully stuck to the diet or this way of eating had I not found this community. Because as easy as it is to stick to, I think there's so many temptations, but this community
Yeah.
is so strong. It gives you more reason to stick to it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And when you see someone like Kip, who falls off and feels bad, and he comes back to the community and apologizes and asks for forgiveness, and I felt terrible, but here's what I did, and everyone's like, it's okay, Kip, just get right back on like nothing happened. And now he's putting out videos that he's doing that, and
Mm.
we all get to joke around and have fun, and it's life, and we get to do it together. And I'm really glad that I found this community. I switched my channel to carnivore content just recently. And I've been doing a lot of lives lately. It's been really fun.
Yeah.
And so we're just having a blast. And when you're having fun, you're more likely to stick with what's fun. You don't want drudgery in your life. That people are averse to that. I am. And so when we can hang out and have fun together and joke around, and there's lots of great channels and lives and shows, and you're on some of them, that are doing that. And
Mm.
when you're on with Carnivore Quest and you guys are doing trivia, I mean, I think that's really fun. And we just have ways to hang out, and you actually make real friends, even though you could be halfway across the country, or in your case, it's tomorrow already, which gives me hope.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit more about your plans for your channel and what you're doing?
Yeah, appreciate that. It's hard to say. The job that I came here for, which is a couple other podcasts there might be a little bit overlap, but so I'm working on those things, and that's where my main focus is for the most part. But um, my channel was occasional phone videos. Now it's turning into occasional carnivore videos and more lives than not, because lives are just easier. But yeah, I would like to, be more consistent with my content around the edges of my job. It would be good to do at least something a week. I've got a couple ideas. I just did a 2-day sardine fast. I was house sitting and watching their dogs, and I didn't want to mess up their kitchen with making a steak and stuff. So I just brought some sardines and ate sardines for a couple of days. So, the results of that and how I felt after I broke the fast this morning is interesting. So that, things like that. I have a frozen tongue in the freezer. So I'd like to cook the tongue and make a video out of that. First, someone has to clean my kitchen. I don't know who that's going to be. It might have to be me. um, and let's see what other, and then the one I was telling you about, what the global elites and their plans for our future, and how that affects, what they plan for our diet. And, how maybe since I am active in politics, even here in Iowa now, how we could maybe influence our lawmakers and at least let them know, um, no, we want to eat meat. So stand strong. And so those are some of the ideas that I have. And otherwise, I'll be in chat a lot, because I'm like the kid in the back of the room making jokes and distracting the class. So that'll be me.
If one of your friends was interested in the diet, well, firstly, actually, has anyone talked to you about what you're doing and said, "Look, you've lost quite a bit of weight very quickly. You're looking, happier, calmer than you were before. How do I get some of this?"
Yeah. That did happen when I was in Arizona, when I was doing one steak a day and lost the 40, 50 pounds. It was pretty dramatic. And I got comments constantly, hey, you're looking great. What are you doing? And I would tell them. And um, I don't know that anyone switched to it as a result, but certainly was able to bring awareness to it that, yeah, you can eat one steak a day and do very well and feel great and look a lot better. So those opportunities, yeah, that happened a lot in Arizona. And then here, like I said, I've got a friend of mine who's at church, and we were talking last night, about some things, just about, how things are going with us. And, I need less sleep, and, I'm hungry. What do I do? I'm like, well, eat. If you can't do one meal a day, that's fine. One meal a day is not for everybody. And so, at least here, there's a couple people where we have our own little carnivore club, I guess, where we can, we've either been on it or are on it, and we can talk too. So I haven't lost enough weight here yet for people to ask me about it, I don't think, but it's coming. It's coming. 10 down. We'll see where I end up.
So for someone just getting started, what would your number one tip be for sticking to it
Oh, great.
at the beginning?
Really great question. Yeah. So I've done it a couple ways, right? And since I've tried and failed several times, I've learned each time. And so that would be my first tip. If you do fail, fail up, right? Learn, and failure is not the right word. It's like Thomas Edison. You failed at making a light bulb 1,000 times. It's like, no, I found 1,000 different ways not to make a light bulb. And eventually he got there. So it's kind of the same thing. If you want to get on ketovore, carnivore, and it doesn't work out for whatever reason, you give into cravings, you can't get past those, learn from it and get back on it, because the benefits are real. So that would be the first thing I would recommend. Now, especially with carnivore, a lot of people start keto and kind of ease into it. But I think either way, you're going to have what's known as the keto flu. And that's when your cells are not yet adapted to burning fat or ketones, and you're not giving it carbs. So your body's in this in-between state. And a couple things are going to happen. You're probably going to have diarrhea for a week or two. That's fun. You're going to be shedding water weight, which that is fun. So I lost 10 pounds in 4 days. It was water weight. But with it went your electrolytes. So you're getting a headache and you feel lethargic, and you have to get through that. And there are ways to do that. Extra salt, take electrolytes, those types of things. So be aware of that. Know that it's going to pass. And when it gets to the other side, it's going to be great. So that would be my other tip. And then after that, watch Dave's videos and all of his friends, because we do encourage each other in this way of eating, and you'll make friends, and you'll get a lot of great tips that'll help.
Mike, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey with us. I really appreciate it. And I hope that you'll come back in a couple of months and give us an update and let us know how you're going.
Thanks for including me, man. I really do appreciate it. It was fun.